The problem with the guardrail for your retirement plan. I had never come across this before until I was working with my man Ronnie McDonough yesterday. And I was like, whoa, very interesting. I love the guardrails. I'm a huge fan of the guardrails, but I like the guardrails for the downside risk protection. But I was like, anyway, I'll tell you what's going on here. So my man Ron, crushing legend, lives in the West Coast, and he's just doing great. He's a very aggressive investor. I don't think he has any bonds at all. He's trying to build up some cash. Like I told him, I said, man, build up some cash. Well, now he's all stocks. So the stock portfolios I use, an all stock portfolio in Right Capital, 6% is our expected rate of return with a 17% standard deviation. All right. So that means on any given year, he could be down 45% or he could be up 57%. So that's a wide range of returns, wide variance. And again, remember, standard deviation is just a variance around the mean. I think they do this, what they do, square root, the variance, whatever, the coefficient, whatever it is, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. You can look it up. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. So in any given year, he could be up 57 or down 45. All right, so that's a pretty wide berth there in terms of volatility. But the markets are positively skewed. All right, so the markets go up more than they go down. So the likelihood of him being down 20% in any given year is less than him being up 20% any given year. All right. So the guardrail, what the guardrail does, and what I establish here, is that if your portfolio drops by 20% or more, you're going to take a 10% decline in your spending. If the portfolio goes up by 20% or more, you're going to get a 10% increase in your spending, a bonus essentially, pay cut or a bonus. And that will be the new baseline going forward. So hear me out. So let's just say we start retirement with $1 million and we're spending $100,000 a year. The next year, our portfolio is down to $750. It's down more than 20%. So our baseline going forward will be $90,000, all right, as our new baseline for spending. And we'll use that to adjust with inflation. So we start with $100,000, the portfolio fell 20%, we're down to $90,000. That's our new adjustment. If the portfolio goes up more than 20%, we give ourselves a bonus, but it'll be a bonus off that $90,000 baseline. If the portfolio only goes up 5 or 6%, we're still just giving us an increase with inflation. 90,000 with a 3% inflation, we'll just use, what's that, $2,700. It'll be roughly 92,700 the following year, 3%. So it'll probably take 3 years or so before you're back to the $100,000 that you initially were spending with the guardrails. All right, you're still doing pretty good, don't get me wrong, but you're right back to where you were probably 3 or 4 years from now. That's again if the portfolio drops 20% and it does not go above 20% in any given year. You'll take a couple years to get back to where you were. That makes sense. I like that. I like to protect the downside. The problem though is on the other side. It's something I hadn't even looked at. If the portfolio goes up 20%, now we're going to give ourselves a bonus, and that will be our new baseline. All right, so now the portfolio was $1 million. We're spending $100,000. Now the portfolio is worth $1.3 million. So we're giving ourselves a bonus. Our new spending will now be $110,000, and we're going to adjust that with inflation every year. All right, so again, it goes from 100 to 110, and that's our new baseline going forward until either we get another increase of over 20%, or we get a decrease of under 20% of less if the portfolio drops by 20%, and then we're going to give ourselves a pay cut. All right. Either way, though, we're still increasing it with inflation each and every year. So I want to show you something here. What I do is I use the retirement spending stages. Retirement spending stages at 65, you're growing each and every year with inflation, roughly 3%. At 75, it drops by 10%. And that's our new baseline. Then it goes up with inflation by roughly 3% a year. At 85, it drops another 10%, and that's our new baseline. All right, and that's pretty reasonable. That's pretty conservative, actually. When you look at actual spending patterns of retirees, they spend a lot less than what I'm showing you here in terms of the trajectory of their expenditures. But again, I like to err very heavily on the side of caution. I'm from Maine, dude. Cautiously pessimistic. So I want to show you something here. And the guardrails. We're going to compare the guardrail right here, 2045. This is the guardrail down here. This is the retirement spending stages. So by 2045, 20 years from now, we're going to use old Ronnie McDonough here. His spending is now 109, all right, 2045. With the guardrails, it's 119, all right, so 10,000 more than the traditional retirement spending stages, roughly 10%. That tells you that we had a portfolio that was up 20% or more at one time. in the previous 20 years, 2045 or in 2025. All right, so his portfolio grew at 1 year more than 20%, which gave him a 10% bonus. So he has 119 is now the baseline, 109 is what the traditional method would be. 2050, that 119 is now 140 because we're adjusting that each and every year with inflation. This 109 is now 128. So that is still pretty significantly different. It's still 12%, $12,000 more than what he was spending on the traditional one with the guardrail. The guardrail did good for him, giving a nice little bonus. Watch what happens in 2055. Now his spending goes up to 164, and over here is 140. So his spending went from 140 to 164. That's a 24,000 increase, which is a doubling of what he had over here. And the reason for that is because we had another 20% or more gain. So he gives himself another bonus. So now he's spending 20% more roughly than what he's spending with a traditional. And then in the year he dies, he's spending 193 over here versus 165 over there. Now that sounds great in theory, except for the fact that in a very aggressive portfolio, is that if he gets swamped with his new baseline a couple years in a row, like we had in 2001, 2, and 3, actually only real 2002, but 2008, you see what I'm saying? He's going to get 2008 is a perfect example. 37% loss, but 57% total. 57% total, and he's using this as his baseline, and he's only got to drop it by 10%. That's where we have an issue, because we only reduced the portfolio one time. 2000, 2001, and 2 is a perfect example of that. Pablo, he only had one time where the portfolio was down 20% or more, and that's just the S&P 500. I don't even think Wellington was down 20% or more. Yet his portfolio fell 9, 12, and 22% respectively. But only one time did he drop it because he's only down that 1 year, 2002, by 20% or more. So he's still having that baseline high up here, even though the market is going down 9, 12, and 22%. Let's just use this as a baseline, 164. He only drops it one time. But the market is taking away almost half his portfolio. And then 2007, the market was down. 2008 was down one time. 2009 was down. So in 2000, I'm talking all the way up to March 9th. So we were lost 57% from October 2007 to March 9th of 2009. But only one time to the benchmark, not the benchmark, the guardrail kick in where he had to reduce his portfolio spending by 10% or more. Or by 10%, not 10% or more, by 10%. Does that make sense? So we're down 57%, but the guardrail only gave us a guardrail for that one time. Because we had such a drastic drop, it did not adjust for it. It still gave us a higher guardrail than what we're having in the traditional model. Because before we had such great returns, like 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999, it's going to increase, and then whoosh. And as such, it's more risky of a portfolio. Because when you got the spending increases, that was a new baseline. So you had spending increases, then you're whoop. But that whoop only dropped it one time. That's it. Very rarely have we had 20% or more. I'm trying to think. I think 4 times. I think we've only had once where the market was, I did this, I look at it, but I think we've only had like twice where the market was down more than 20% consecutively. And then one time, we had 4 times where it was down 20% or more consecutively. Don't quote me on that. It's in my new book I'm working on. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But other than that, it hardly ever happens. And yet we've had significant down markets, 73, 74. See what I'm saying? But only one of those is down more than 20%. 2000, 2001, and 2. Only one of them is down more than 20%. 7, 8, and 9. Only one of those is down more than 20%. 19, 29, 30, 31, 32. I think that was we had 3 or 4 straight years of down 20%. I can't remember. I just can't remember. But anyway, so we're giving ourselves these massive raises. And yet when the time comes for a decline because of the market declining, we only had to give ourselves one little reduction, yet we lost 57% of our portfolio. And that's the problem on the upside with a guardrail. I had never even thought about that. And again, this because he has a very aggressive portfolio, all right, because his portfolio is all stocks essentially and a little bit of cash. Not enough cash to cover 4 years' expenses. But he doesn't really need to do that. And I'm not even worried about it, frankly. But I just said, wow, that's interesting because he had worse numbers with a guardrail than he did without it. I said, why? And now I know. figure I'd share that with you too. Just keep that in mind. Love your thoughts. Smash. God bless. Happy Easter. Jesus is risen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. If loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right.